Okay, so now that we have our buttons, we are ready to dive into adding event listeners to our button, because the whole idea of having a button is so that we can tap or click and then something needs to happen. Okay, now there's two ways to add an add event listener. Okay, I'll show you the first way. So we have our buttons here. So here at the bottom, I'm gonna go say add event listener. So we'll start with one button here. So we're gonna go ahead and say the up button, okay, dot, and you can see right away we have this add event listener. So notice what happens here. It says it's an abstract button. So the add action listener method here requires us to have an action listener object inside of it. Inside here, what we can do, we can go ahead and say new action listener as an anonymous class, because this class doesn't have any name, okay? And then when we hit enter, this happens here. This override here, you've seen before. What this means is this, in this case, we know that our action listener has an abstract method. That's why we have to override it. As you can see here, so the action performed is a method that it has to be overridden for things to work. That has to be overridden. We have to override it. Okay, so here inside, we're gonna put, so let's say for now we just want to say system.out.print. we can say hello up, something like that. Let's save this and run and see what happens. So it's gonna run just normally. And if we go like this and just look at that, hello up clicked. So as you keep clicking it, it will keep showing the hello up is clicked. So it's working. Let's go back to see what really happens here. We created our up button, right? We gave it the name up. And then we attached an event listener. In this case, we said add action listener. And the action listener has to be, you have to pass the actual object, which is the actual listener. When we pass the object as an anonymous class, you've seen this before, we then have to override the actual method that comes with our action listener, which is an abstract. Why? How do I know this? Well, because we had to override it, and it was an empty method. That way, we can override it and put the action that we want to happen. In this case, we just said hello up is clicked. Since we did the up button, how would you do the down button? Yes, you should manage, same thing. So we're going to say down, add event listener, I'm going to say new, action listener, hit enter, and here we go again. We have everything here, and we can say system.out, hello, down, clicked. If you save and run, we have there, we can say down, and you see hello, down clicked, up, and back and forth. This is pretty cool, isn't it? This is pretty amazing. I mean, consider that we were able to create a little interface here. We put up buttons, right, up and down, and we have a title, and also have this label here. And we are able to actually attach event listeners to our buttons, which is pretty cool. That is very cool. Now, here's the thing. This works fine. And it's absolutely correct. You can do this all day long and it's fine. However, you notice here, there's been a lot of coding happening. So we had to attach the up button, and then we had to touch the down button. And it's fine. It's okay. But the best way of doing this, that way we have a more cleaner code and gives us a little bit more flexibility, would be to do the following. So since we know that this whole class here deals with buttons, this little project we created deals with buttons, what we can do, we can use what we know already about abstract classes. And what I mean by that is we can now go and say implements action listener. Now, what this does, check this out. The moment we said implements action listener, this action listener here is an interface, which means it's a class that has an interfaced keyword, and its methods, its functions that it has are all abstract, which means we have to implement those. which is great for us because since we have to implement those, that gives us a lot of flexibility as to what to do depending on which action we activate in our buttons. Okay, now you see here we have this red. Why? Well, because we have to add unimplemented methods. Now, if we just click add unimplemented methods, it will go away and you will see this. Since we did that, we don't need to go ahead and create for each button an individual action listener, right? Because now what we can do, we can go ahead, let's go ahead and comment this whole out here. Actually, we're going to go ahead and attach the event listeners differently as opposed to creating an inner class like we did like this, which is fine, but it's just not very flexible. We are going to do this. We're going to up button dot add action listener, and all we have to pass here, we're going to say this. Now, what is this? We're just saying, well, we're going to pass this current object here, which is essentially our button, which implements action listener. So we're going to pass everything here as this. Okay, and we can do that the same. Say down button that add and this. And now that we have connected everything, right? What we can do once we've done this, we're saying, okay, we have connected everything together. Now we have connected all of these action listeners here to our current object, which of course in return has this action listener attached to it, which we already know has this action performed already attached here, which is overridden, which means we can then put whatever we want here. So this I'll call our playground, meaning this is where we can do whatever we want to respond to the click of the buttons. So now here, and you notice this action performed passes in an action event, all right? And this is the variable E, which is a type of action event, which means with this E, we can now access each event that is happening. Meaning, now we can say if, check this out, E dot, these are the options we have. We have the mouse motion event mask, we have the window mask. I mean, so many different events that we can catch. Event E dot get action command, which says it returns the command string associated with this action. So meaning, if we go command that action dot equals, let's say, for instance, here, we're gonna up, then we can say system out println up button clicked. Let's stop this. Let's clear it all out. Run. Okay, we're gonna have this. Of course, down is nothing is gonna show because we haven't wired down actually here to say anything. So if you say up, look at that, up button clicked. Because we said, well, if the event that we're receiving, because remember, all it's happening here because we're implementing the action listener class, which here and here we are connecting everything, all those two buttons that we created. And here we have this sort of overall we have this action performed overridden method, which will allow us to catch the events for all of the buttons. If we had 20 buttons, we would have been able to catch everything here and do whatever we want. Now you see how flexible this is. Now just for clarity, like, let's get rid of this. Let's put it all here on the top. In this case, we can go ahead and say else, since we only have two buttons. Let's say system. And we know, of course, if that's not the one, then we know that down button clicked. Run one more time. Now we should have two actions, up button, down button. That is amazing. See, I get so excited about this because now you are able to create things that are a little bit more dynamic, a little bit cool, a little bit awesome, a little bit fun. Things are starting to come together and we're starting to understand and creating things that are a little bit more sophisticated. And oh, that's so exciting. It's always exciting. I never get tired of this. Never. This is great. Well, now that we know how to catch the events and to do appropriate things according to the action that was created, name is up, then we will do this. Else we will do that. Well, you remember that we had created this JLabel my label at this level here, at this instance variable level That means so that we can use anywhere we want here. So now is the time to use my label, right? So what we can do, so the whole idea here, let's run this one more time so I can show you. The whole idea here is to change this text dynamically. So if you are up, if we click up, we should change this to say whatever we want. In this case, we can just change it to say you pressed down or you pressed up. How do we do that? Well, all these components such as JButtons, JLabels, and many other components, they all have properties. So my label is of type JLabel, which means it's a text. It's something that we can display on a canvas or on a JFrame, okay? All right, so we had already done this here. As you can see, we have, in fact, let's just move this up. That way things are moderately organized. So here we said my label, we're instantiating that object, okay? So new JLabel, and we pass in hello there. So now let's just change this to press button. Okay, save this. Let's run one more time. Okay, so now it says press button, but still nothing really changes because we haven't really done anything with our my label. Okay, so this is just the default that will always show. So how to change things? Well, we go here in up. Let's get rid of this because no need to have that anymore. Now we can say my label dot set text because it has this property here of set text, which you can give it a text. You know that already, but in this case we can go ahead and just say you pressed up, and else let's copy this and paste here, say you pressed down. Save this, close that, let's rerun this again. Now if we go ahead and press, you see you pressed up, you pressed down. So congratulations if you were able to get to this point. I'm very, very happy that you're here. You've learned a lot so far, and so you are capable of doing a lot of great things here. So go ahead and play around with this concept. Perhaps make this little canvas, this window here a little bit bigger, change the size, or add more buttons and change the messages on click, and I mean, you name it. Just play around with all this concept. It's really fun. All right. Okay. So I'll see you in the next video.